212. Let's get to Ex Machina, which technically came out in 2014, but I don't think it had a theatrical release until 2015. It is written and directed by Alex Garland, who just did Civil War. Stars Alicia Vikander, Donald Gleason, Oscar Isaac. That's about it for big names. And the synopsis is a young programmer is selected to participate in a groundbreaking experiment in synthetic intelligence by evaluating the human qualities of a highly advanced humanoid AI. So, similar to her, this would be the best of the group that I'm talking about in this collection and would easily be one of my favorite sci fi films of the 2010s, maybe of all time, really. But it gets better every single time. It's one of those. I've seen it 5 or 6 times at least. One of the things that I love about it is that it has such a seemingly simple narrative structure and concept, but I feel like whether it's on the page or underlying ideas, it's so deep with those possibilities of AI, the good things, the bad things, the threats. Some strong marks. The idea, the writing for Oscar Isaac's character, which this is one of his bigger movies at the time, right when he was in Star Wars, I believe, is he's this billionaire tech startup guy who runs a Google like company. He lives out in the middle of nowhere. He's fairly young, all considering. He lives completely on his own, just working on his new inventions, his new technology, his new software. He makes a focus for, while he drinks and all these things, he makes a focus of talking about taking antioxidants and exercising. And he's this new wave, I feel like, of the sort of the Silicon Valley billionaire. But also at the same time, he's in some ways like a sociopath because he's so disconnected from everything. All he cares about is having power, having the control, psyching everybody out, and moving forward with what he believes to be the right technology. As he plays on the words of Donald Gleason's character, likes when people refer to him as a god. So, like I just talked about with Transcendence, where maybe it's not explicitly stated that Johnny Depp wants to be God, people are accusing him of that. Whereas in this, Oscar Isaac has no hesitation to be like, yeah, I like the sound of that. That's good. That's really what I am, obviously. Which I haven't really seen that much of in films like this, and how that overall character is structured. Despite the film mainly just taking place at this house, you wouldn't really have guessed it that it was one location because there's so much variety in the look of the hallways, the rooms, the exterior shots where they go and take walks. It feels like every scene had some new sort of visual or interesting production design. This is also still, I would say, one of Alicia Vikander's biggest roles because she was in this and The Danish Girl. She's a fantastic actor and very underrated. I wish she would get back into more mainstream films because I feel like the last 4 or 5 years, ever since Tomb Raider, she's kind of fallen off. I don't know why exactly, maybe for family or what, but she's an amazing actor, and this is easily one of her best works. The design of Ava is incredibly iconic. One of those great, simple, yet, like I was talking about with iRobot, very simple but very powerful and evocative looks for a AI character. And those conversations between Ava and Donald Gleason when they're doing the Turing test, there's a lot of discovery there that you can't help but wonder what she's going to say next, what she might answer, how she may answer a certain question. And even in my lack of technological knowledge and experience, I feel like if I were to guess, this could be a very realistic example of AI in the real world being tested. some of the twists, which spoilers here just in case you haven't seen it, sorry. There are so many little subtle twists and reveals and surprises and sleight of hands that's what's great about the rewatchability of this is each time I feel like I'm noticing one more that I didn't notice the last time. And that's such a great strength for a film. The stuff towards the end, just jumping towards the end for a little bit, when Donald Gleason is trying to help Ava escape because he's realized that Oscar Isaac has been, even though they're robots, they've been becoming so self-aware that they want to escape, that they realize that the treatment that Oscar Isaac is giving them is not right. And Ava is the latest version to not yet be destroyed, even though he has plans to do that. So then Donald Gleason is like, we're going to get out of here. I'm going to save you. When all that starts happening, Oscar Isaac, or you think at first, Donald Gleason is at an advantage. Then that morning that it's all supposed to go down, Oscar Isaac reveals, I'm on to you. You know this. Like, I have cameras here, this and that. You're through. But then there's yet another twist where actually Donald Gleason had done something prior that allowed him to maintain that advantage of trapping Oscar Isaac, theoretically, and helping Ava. And all of those are not in your face. They're not those twists where they become tiresome. They feel more than reasonable within the context of the story. They're not pretentious. They're not overwritten. They're not eye roll in terms of not being something that could be accomplished. And quickly, on that note, this is still, I think, Alex Garland's best movie, both writing and direction. Because the movie looks great, great lighting, great composition, but those two central strengths have yet to be topped. The dance sequence with Oscar Isaac and his female robot assistant, who, you don't find out till later she's a robot, that's one that has really had a shelf life. I still see it referenced and parodied online and social media and GIFs and all that. Not really necessary, but adds some levity to the movie. Along with all the twists at the end, that's really where the visual style and the creativity of what AI robots could look like, both on the surface and underneath, and all of it is brilliant. For example, one of my favorites is when you see the robot assistant of Oscar Isaac pulling down the piece of her artificial skin on her face, and you see the artificial eyeball and the metal, and it's this very stark, striking image that is, in some ways it really does turn into a horror film, because these robots suddenly get the upper hand. The few security measures that Oscar Isaac thought were uncrackable are turned off in one way or the other, and things go nuts. The scene in the hallway when Ava gets out and the robot assistant shows up, Oscar Isaac is, of course, freaking out when Ava turns to him and he's trying to say, all right, go back in your room, get out of here, listen to me. Obviously, she's so advanced, she's making that decision for herself. And there's that great momentum of that wide, deep focus shot of her slowly gaining speed, running at him, and then finally she jumps at him and knocks him to the ground. And when the assistant has the knife behind Oscar Isaac and he unknowingly walks right into it, and you can only imagine how that would feel. The score is another excellent part, something I always notice. I love a great score. When it comes to AI, there's a lot of interesting variety that a composer could theoretically inject musically, and this is a great example of that. Maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like one aspect of the music that really helps the suspense build is it starts off very quiet, and I feel like it builds more and more and more over time until the third act has really in your face, bombastic, edgy electronic sounds that create that overwhelming climax. Which that's not a new brilliant discovery, but in this film specifically, it's used incredibly effectively. The final epilogue, when Ava gets out, she looks like a normal person because she's stolen the skin off of the past versions of her, which is a brilliant visual. Then she gets on the helicopter, and that final shot looks so good. I think it's the camera turned upside down and shoots down on a city street sidewalk or patio, something, and there are all these shadows of silhouettes of people walking by this way and that, and then you see her silhouette as a normal person, and then she walks off. And you're like, okay, well, good luck, everybody, because now she looks like everyone else. There's little to no difference between how she speaks compared to someone else. The scene when Donald Gleason is starting to become a little bit more aware or suspicious of Oscar Isaac's intentions and how the lottery thing was a total jip, he asks Oscar Isaac, "Did you base the look of Ava on my pornography profile?" Because he's obviously attracted to her. And then we find out that Oscar Isaac has been hacking his computer to find out, are you a decent person? What are your interests? Do you have family? Are there any risks of bringing you to my secret compound? And one thing that is very, if you think about it realistically, what's going to keep someone more, as shallow as it might be, keeping someone more focused on a experiment like this is having that test subject be attractive to them specifically, more so than they would even think. So I feel like as gross as that is, that's really smart. When you see the old footage that Donald Gleason is going through of the past robots and they're smashing at the window or the glass doors to try and get out, and then Ava gets revenge on everybody, even Donald Gleason, who is trying to help her. She's like, screw you, I'm out of here. Now my creator can be dead and you can know what it feels like to be trapped yourself. So good luck. Which sucks because you don't see Donald Gleason, at least I didn't, as a bad guy in particular. He's fairly innocent in all this, but then AI doesn't really discriminate. If you're going against me, you're going to get burned, essentially is what this felt like. Yeah, it is still an amazing movie to me. I think everyone should watch it. I feel like it's not so sci-fi or so one thing that it would turn really anyone off. So that is a heavy, heavy 5 out of 5.